Welcome to the Startup Competitors Podcast, where we talk with early-stage entrepreneurs and to understand what information they use to inform product roadmap, strategy, and market differentiation. Want regular updates on moves your competitors are making? You can learn more at startupcompetitors.com.
Hey, welcome to the podcast. Today we're chatting with Dan Gusz, who's the co-founder and CEO of Lloyd. You can find them at withloyd.com. Lloyd is a career coaching platform that Dan and his sister, who's his co-founder, are building out. They're currently in the beta phase. We talk a little bit about that, how they built that beta, how they're planning on scaling going forward. Spent a lot of time on kind of the theory around the type of coaching that they're doing and what they're thinking from an efficacy perspective and how they plan on approaching product and features and how things unfold over time going forward based on the actual science and data of what they're uncovering. Great conversation. Really enjoyed it. Definitely gives you a lot to think about if you're early in your career. So I suspect there's a couple of folks who could listen to this and walk away with some different things. And really just appreciated Dan's transparency with kind of where they're at and how they're thinking about growth and what's on the horizon. You can check them out, again, like I said, withloyd.com. You can find Dan on social media. Thank him for coming on the show, and thank you so much for listening.
Most founders start companies because they figured out a better way to solve a problem or serve a need. Not because they love tracking payroll, filling out compliance forms, and explaining employee benefits packages. And yet, all that stuff still has to be done. That's why there's Full Stack PEO. Full Stack PEO specializes in turnkey HR for emerging companies. Not just those core services, but advice and expertise that helps founders maximize employee potential. Curious? Find more at fullstackpeo.com.
Welcome to the podcast. Today we're chatting with Dan Gusz, who's the co-founder and CEO of Lloyd. Dan, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Why don't we start with a quick pitch for Lloyd?
Absolutely. So I'll give the quick pitch and certainly can go into more detail. So we started Lloyd with really the simple premise, and it's something that we felt ourselves, which was that as individuals navigating our career, we wanted to have additional structure and accountability for our career. We thought that because careers are so important, and they were very important to us. Myself, I had been working at a startup. Previously, I had worked in some large consulting companies. And my co-founder started as a classroom teacher. She worked in higher ed and administration. She got an MBA. She worked in human capital consulting as well. And for both of us coming from different areas, we realized we wanted to have that additional level of structure and accountability to build behaviors positively in our career, similar to how you may look at health or wellness or fitness and say, how do I build these positive behaviors? Because just like health or wellness, your career is a very long-term thing that's important for you, but you're in it alone, right? You're often navigating your career by yourself. So we start with that simple premise, not necessarily with the product in mind, but really with that user problem. And I've spent the last, better part of a year trying to figure out what is that type of product that is best suited for user needs. We spent about 700 hours throughout 2020, really just in user interviews and working with individuals to figure that out. And so today we leverage a lot of behavior science so that each day, each week, when our members look to navigate their career, they're navigating it with the concept of what my goals are and how I'm working towards those, right? So leveraging behavior science to say, it's not about the big bang, I just want a new job, right? That isn't necessarily how outcomes and goals happen, but it's about saying, well, what do I actually want to accomplish this week? Or maybe even just today, right? What are the one or two things that I want to accomplish? And if you start small, right, just like in many of the popular books, whether it's Tiny Habits or Atomic Habits or so many other great books out there, you start small in those, 1% changes and you build from there. So we take that approach to help our individuals and our members navigate their careers. Typically, it's folks within the first 2 decades of their career. And it's been a really exciting and honestly a very motivating journey thus far, and we look forward and are excited about the continued progress as we go forward. So happy to be here.
Can you take that to the next layer of tangibility? If I'm a user of Lloyd and I sign up or log in, what am I doing, experiencing, seeing? What does the product look like?
Absolutely. So one of our tenets of the product today is when you sign up, you're matched with a co-pilot. And so what we think of as a co-pilot is it's another human being, and it's someone that is with you along the journey of your career. Because for a lot of individuals, their careers are fairly lonely. It's just you in your career. And so, anything from bringing accountability to your career, having someone to be able to bounce ideas from, and having someone help you achieve those goals. So first, you're matched with a co-pilot. Typically, there's a conversation with your co-pilot to better understand what you're trying to achieve. Moving forward, we typically have a conversation via email or even sometimes text message with our members each week. So again, starting to break down that goal and creating a personalized plan where then you're targeting what you want to accomplish each week. So our members, it's as simple as you get a standard set of questions that you start to answer each Monday morning. So you have intention for your week. And as we create that personalized plan for you, then as an individual, you can leverage our online dashboard, which you can think of simply as the homepage for your career. So it's a place where your career actually exists, everything from to-dos to documents uploaded to setting your goals to then working through the step-by-step guides that we've created for all different areas of your career. So everything from what do I want my narrative to be? I don't have to necessarily go and Google 30 different blog posts about narrative and kind of piece it together. Lloyd provides it for you. Or maybe I want to have a conversation with my boss about my year-end goals. Or maybe I want to have a way to better engage with the advisors around me. So as you see, there are a few components of what Lloyd actually means. It starts with that co-pilot to bring accountability and structure. That ongoing correspondence helps you then achieve those goals little by little each day and each week. And the online dashboard then is a place where actually you can kind of move forward with the pieces of your career that you're targeting. And it's a way for you then to kind of know this is the right way to do it. And you don't have to necessarily guess at each step of the way.
I love it. And is that co-pilot a Lloyd employee? Is it is it a peer, somebody else who's on the platform and looking for accountability, and this is part of how they get it? Is that they also give it? How does that work?
It's a good question. So right now, those are Lloyd employees. We take the approach that it isn't necessarily about, how much time you spend with a member. So it's not like, okay, you have this 60-minute call and it's just about how much time you spend on the phone. It's about bringing that holistic structure and accountability to their career. So it's a Lloyd employee. They work with you. They're your co-pilot kind of as you continue. We do have some components that will continue to roll in, bringing more of kind of a community and maybe some elements of mentorship in there as well. But your co-pilot's an employee.
Love it. Paint a picture of current status for folks who are listening. Is it, you still 2 folks in a garage? Are you 100 employees about to embark on your Robin Hood $3 billion venture round? Any vanity metrics you can share or paint a picture for where you're at on the journey?
Sure. So I would say we're 2 folks in a digital garage is maybe how I think about it. We started the company kind of early to midway through 2020 and spent the first number of months really just trying to kind of better understand the user problem. We then launched our online dashboard and kind of this holistic product in early December, really. So kind of the holistic product really wasn't launched until a couple months ago. Where we're at, we're running a 100-person beta program right now as we're recording this here today. So we're really focused on depth and quality of learnings and following the journey of our members that we have to date. Certainly there will be a time in the near future where we want to now focus more on growth, but we're actually not really in that mode right now. It's more about quality and depth of learnings that we have. We brought on members really not by intention, but just because we've seen some interest across quite a number of countries. So we're focused in the U.S. We're both located in the U.S. My co-founder, who is my sister as well, she's in Denver. I'm in New York City. So both in the U.S., focuses in the U.S., but we have brought on folks for about half a dozen countries across the world, which has been interesting for us to see the exposure geographically in different countries. But 100-person beta program is what we've been running to date.
So a 100-person beta feels to me like a pretty good sized beta. Was it intentional to get it up to 100? How did you find those folks and recruit them? I'd love for you to talk a little bit about kind of designing that and putting it together.
Yeah, it's a good question and something we've been learning along the way. Both of us come don't come from direct consumer backgrounds, and we didn't start the company necessarily with the intention of, will this be direct consumer? Is this structured in a different way? But really identifying the user problem and then kind of structuring the product based on the user problem. And the user problem that we established really is that your career is personal to you, and you navigate that over the length of your career, over 20, 30, 40 years. And so your career should be something that you're working on yourself, and it's something you're investing in yourself, just like your health or fitness or wellness or nutrition. And so that's the solution we've come to. And so we started then to figure out, to your question, how do we actually go out and acquire users? It turned out this was all during the pandemic, which is also has pros and cons. I mean, folks are online; they're more ready to go to events online, and so we've had a number of different webinars. We've seen a lot of interest in different webinars where it's on particular topics around a particular sector. So we've had ones on climate change. We've had ones on startups. We've then had ones on particular functions. So we had ones on habits. We've had ones on job searching. So we've seen a lot of interest in those type of events, which I think we would potentially try to have in an in-person world as well as we kind of move forward in the years ahead. Content marketing has definitely been something as well. So we'll publish either ourselves or on guest post on other blogs. Has been a way as an early stage startup to kind of get outside of our networks in a way that can get to larger audiences. Not necessarily as advantageous for SEO on our own personal site, but certainly from getting out to a broader audience. But I would say the biggest thing is been referrals. If you think of your career, when are you talking about your career? Oftentimes it's with your friends, it's with colleagues, it's with family members. When you're saying, how's your week? And one of the first things you talk about is your job, right? And you're often talking about that. So we've seen about a third of our members come in through referrals, and we think that'll be a key channel for us as we move forward. Just because that's the normal way from so many people, they talk about their careers. It's, with a friend at a party or online or over the phone. And so that's one of the biggest channels for us in terms of onboarding new users.
When you think of competition for Lloyd, who or what comes to mind? What's the market that you feel like you kind of operate in, and how do you try to, both penetrate that market as well as differentiate from other offerings in that market?
It's probably cliche to say, we're in a new market. We don't have competitors. I don't think that's true. I may not name them by name, but certainly I think there's some other folks kind of in the broader space. When we think about the landscape that we're targeting, so first and foremost, it's in the direct consumer space. There are a lot of players in the B2B space that are offering really great solutions to employers, whether it's for coaching options, whether it's for mentorship options, learning, so many other opportunities. But the B2B space is very different. Many of our members work at companies where they have those opportunities through work, but they're still a Lloyd member as well, because those opportunities through work really are, job coaching or job upskilling. And your career is very different. The job I'm in now is just one journey on the journey of my career. So, we'll differentiate there in terms of B2B versus direct to consumer. And then the other angle we think about a lot is kind of in terms of scalability or usage of more of a software product. Like I said earlier, the human component is important for us. It's a way to provide some sense of accountability. It's really been something that, as we spoke with so many members and users, they want to have in their career. They want that sense of having a human involved. But at the same time, we realize that it's not necessarily about the length of those conversations, right? So some more traditional career coaching where it's kind of on a, hourly basis. And that's not necessarily the approach that we found that our core demographic wants, which is, the 20-something or 30-something individual who's looking to try to create more structure in their career. So, for that landscape, there are a few players, but we think it's a fairly unique approach, which has its pros and cons, right? Anytime you tackle a new market, it definitely has pros and cons in terms of when you explain the product, people say, I've never heard of something like that, right? Well, that's kind of the point of it a little bit in inventing it. But there are some elements of legacy players, but there are definitely some elements that are kind of brand new to the space based on those learnings that we've had along the way.
Based on that answer, paint a picture for me, because because I'm super interested in how you're differentiating between what you're doing with Lloyd and what I might get at my employer, right? When you think of something that's more focused on your job and less maybe on a career, paint a picture for what Lloyd looks like 5 years from now, or what, you pick the time horizon, right? But just trying to get an idea of, when you're out of beta and you're, kind of full featured, whatever that means, what's the vision you and your sister are building here? Walk through that a little bit.
Yeah, so the vision really is that, if you're a 20-something or 30-something individual, typically knowledge workers, so someone that's in consulting or finance or works at a tech company or a startup, and so many other kind of works at a big Fortune 500 company, works at a mid-sized company, anywhere, in those spaces, we want to be that tool and that resource for you, so that your career is meaningful. It's bringing more meaning to your career. It's structured. I know where I'm going and I know how to get there. And you have that sense of accountability in it. And so I'm going to answer the question probably less from a product focus, because in 5 years, I can't necessarily tell you what the product will look like, but I definitely can tell you that it'll leverage behavior science, even behavioral economics, so that you are gaining the ability to navigate properly or kind of towards your goals in the way you want to, in ways that are kind of proven to be successful. So that it's that ongoing, whether it's using nudge theory, it's that ongoing progress. One element of that certainly is going to be really important is the data that we collect. Right? We're not collecting data to use it for any other purpose except to say, you as an individual X, okay, you have similar goals to these 5 or 50 or 500 or 5,000 other people that we've worked with. Here's what this pathway looks like. Here are the behaviors that they have done to be successful along the way. And the reason I say that, and the reason that's so important, is because when you look at careers, when we think about careers, you may know what a friend's job is, right? Or a coworker's job is, or someone you see on LinkedIn. You may see that job, but you don't see those behaviors, right? When they go home, what are they actually working on? Saturday morning when they wake up, are they learning a new skill? Are they moving forward with, meeting 2 new people a month from a networking standpoint? Are they working towards a particular goal that's 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years away? Maybe, maybe not, but we don't see that. And there's a lack of data in careers around actual behaviors and the goals that people are setting. And so we want to help uncover that so that each of our members can learn from the broader membership of Lloyd. Over time, the data we collect is become increasingly important so that we can provide those insights for our members in the long run, so that they can get those learnings to say, okay, I want to be the VP of sales in 5 years. Here's what I need to be as the VP of sales. Here are the exact skill sets I need to have. And here's a pathway that Lloyd helped me create to get there along the way. And the Lloyd product will then help break that down so that each day or each week you're working towards that. Because, if I ask you now where you want to be in 5 years, or you ask me that same question, it's both hard to answer and then very hard to say what are the actual behaviors I should have along the way. But if you then say, what should I do this week? It's a lot easier, right? And that's kind of one of the main theories and tenets of behavior science. And so as we collect more data, it's about setting those long-term goals, but then actually giving people insight into the behaviors they should take in the shorter run.
Unpack something for me there. So I would agree, short-term behaviors are obviously absolutely much easier than the bigger picture. What do you want to be doing 5 years from now or 10 years from now? But how do you identify what those right behaviors are if you don't know what the bigger goal is? If somebody can't articulate, okay, for me, this is what I want it to look like 5 years from now. If they can't do that, how do they know, should I be building my network today, or should I be, doing something else, getting more efficient at how I perform a task or something like that? How do you work backwards into daily tasks if you don't have kind of the goal that they're shooting for?
It's a good question. And for many folks, when they first start with Lloyd, we start there with trying to think through and spending, sometimes up to 2 or 3 months trying to figure out what those longer term goals are. the analogy we'll give is, if you want to run a marathon, let's say you work out 3 days a week, but, Monday you go swimming, Wednesday you go for a 2-mile jog, and Friday you lift weights. You may say, hey, I'm working out 3 days a week, I'm getting in shape, but it might not actually be the proper prep to train for that marathon. And so we do think it's pretty fundamental, to use the analogy to say, okay, it's that I want to run a marathon, right? Or what's that 5-year goal for you? So as you set that, then we can help you in those more in smaller steps, right? So a lot of folks will say, hey, I don't necessarily love my job. I want a new job. We'll say, okay, let's take a step back and say, well, what are you actually trying to accomplish? Because the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes where you are is the best thing, right? Or where do you want that next job? So we'll usually go through that process with folks to actually try to figure out, and we have some methodologies that we've begun to use more and more to help individuals think about those goals, which, are one of our core demographics is someone who's maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years out of college, has been in one job or maybe 2 jobs. So they're kind of looking up and saying, okay, I kind of understand what this career thing is, but I need to think about where I want to go in the long run. I just have no clue how to think about that, go about it. I don't know what tools to use. So that's why a lot of folks will come to Lloyd, and why we developed some methodologies to help individuals think about what those goals are over the longer run. As you start to think about those, then those near-term objectives become a little clearer, right? If you want to, again, be the VP of sales in 5 years, then I can say, okay, well, I probably need to be the director of sales beforehand, and I probably need to be a manager of sales beforehand, right? I'm overly simplifying this, but then it's clear to say, well, okay, if the next step is manager of sales, what are all the skill sets that someone has to be the manager of sales? Okay, well, let's go start to work towards those. And so as you work backwards, then you can actually kind of move forward with intention. And then the Lloyd program broadly then helps you actually achieve that each day or each week as you move forward. So I know that's a bit abstract. Part of that is because everyone's career is a bit different, right? Over time, we're going to try to use a lot of the data we're collecting and the insights that we have to define those pathways a little bit more. But it definitely, one of the biggest learnings we've had is, everyone's career is pretty personalized to them. And you have to build a solution that's personalized to them because, frankly, they deserve it. Your career is really important and you deserve to have something that's personalized to you to help you navigate as you move forward.
Does that advice, so as you're talking through that, as you're laying out that roadmap and trying to walk somebody through that process, what's the risk of that becoming less about career coaching and more about life coaching? Because I can see as you're having that conversation of where somebody wants to be 5 years from now, there's potentially a number of different things that factor into that, right? Not just career. So how do you navigate that when it comes up?
I don't know if we necessarily have a full answer for that right now. I think it's something we're still thinking about how we navigate. It's if you think of, even if you think of a teacher, right? Those questions come up for a teacher, right? You may be teaching someone algebra and they're then talking to you about maybe, something else that's going on in their life at the same time. And so,
yeah,
I think it's something, that one of the reasons we kind of came to where we are, right? My co-founder, she started her career through Teach for America as a classroom teacher, right? And so we saw that for many individuals, you have some of that sense of structure around you until the day you leave campus, right? In the day you leave campus, that, everything, that structure you've had around you for the last, 10 or 15 years of life goes away. And now all of a sudden it's, you have a career, you have a job, but what those guardrails are around you, you don't necessarily have. So, I probably don't have a full answer for you on what the long run for that looks like, right? How do you help individuals when maybe what they're looking for is something outside of careers that maybe be impacting what their career is? I think over time we'll probably bring in additional products and services to support in those areas, or we'll refer out to partners that will develop. Which of those, I think we're too early to say, but it's definitely, you're bringing up a very good question, which is that careers, just like many other elements of life that I've spoken about, are more than just what the job is that you have today, and are you good at Excel or are you good at public speaking? It goes far beyond that, and the solutions that individuals need are far beyond that as well. So, come back to me in a year and hopefully I'll have a better answer.
That's a pretty good answer. Don't worry about that. Dan, so probably my most important question, what kind of swag do you have for Lloyd?
We're probably a little weak on the swag game right now, but we do have.
Say it ain't so.
Yeah. We'll again, talk to me in a year. Hopefully, we're better there. We do have one example though. So one thing we've tried to do is I would say, a slight example of trying to gamify the Lloyd product. And so what we've done is we've created a point system where each time you engage in that weekly correspondence or that weekly conversation, you get a certain number of points. And every time you refer a friend to Lloyd, you get a certain number of points as well. And so as you accumulate points, there are kind of different thresholds. And so once you get to 50 points, which kind of is accumulation of those different activities, you get a monogrammed Yeti coffee mug. So only one example, but I think it's a pretty good one. Everyone
it is a good one.
Yeti and coffee mug. So I think it says on it, make it a great day. So
not only a high quality product, but also integrates nicely with what you're trying to do from a gamification perspective. Man, I love that example. That's great.
Yeah. So we're trying.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you need branded merchandise for your company, you can reach out to our friends at Fuel Merchandise Group. You can find them at fuelmerchandise.com. Mention Startup Competitors, get 10% off your first order. What are some of the things, I guess, from a technology perspective, I guess one of the things that's interesting to me with what you're doing is, obviously with the availability of machine learning platforms and all the data that you're gathering, there's, obviously things that you can start doing there to track and get smarter. I wonder if, there are other things from what that you look at or you and the team look at from a technology perspective, whether they're real today or emerging on the horizon, that help down this path in terms of getting visibility and understanding for kind of where somebody is and benchmarking them against peers or where they want to go or, whatever the case may be. Some examples of that could be, there could be a script running that's monitoring your social media behavior and activities. And from that is, drawing conclusions about how you're interacting with others and stuff like that. And that could lead to on-platform coaching and, like things that you can kind of do today that, even 10 years ago would have been really hard to think through in terms of extending a reach to really support somebody with what you're trying to do. What are some of the things that have you excited as you think about just a technical roadmap for what you're doing with Lloyd and places that you're hoping that in the coming, months, years, you can invest?
I don't know if it's kind of the script to monitor social media, will be on our roadmap. I know that's just kind of the example you're throwing out.
That's not a recommendation. Anything social media related is a poop show, but just is just an idea.
I'll still go back to a point I said earlier, which is one thing we've really just realized is fundamentally in careers, it's about building positive habits because it's a very long-term initiative for you, and it's hard to build those long-term habits, especially when you're alone in your career, right? There's no one telling you do this or do that. That's really self-guided by you. So I think from a technology standpoint, the data that we capture is certainly important as we think about, how do we make this more personalized for every individual? So it's not necessarily, I think it's in some ways about, not the quantity of data, but the personalization. We want to make it so you have a personalized experience as you navigate forward. And how do we make it so it fits into your life? We haven't heard from individuals that they want this, wildly kind of elaborate technology product that's, souped up with all these capabilities. I think it's about simplicity. It's about engagement. It's about personalization. What does that mean from a technology standpoint? A few different things, but I think, making it simple and personalized is probably at the core of where we want to go. We'd rather have, more simple touch points with individuals than, one larger touch point every 6 months or something like that, right? How do we make it so that we kind of change the paradigm of how you think about your career, which for many individuals is every 6 months or a year or 2 years, I, maybe have a networking conversation or I think about a new job. But we want the paradigm to be, how do I think about it every week, right? Or every other week, even if it's for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute on Monday morning to set my intentions for the week, which maybe is I want to read a chapter of a book. I want to meet one new person this month. I want to explore this area, or, I want to just excel at this one area of work because I want to get that promotion that's in 4 months and I'm laser set on that. Okay, great. Well, let's help you achieve that. And let's start with those positive kind of micro behaviors along the way. So it's a vague answer because I think we're still figuring out what that future roadmap fully is. We don't necessarily have, there are a couple of companies in a few other sectors. So a company like Noom in the weight loss space, or kind of the healthy living space, is, I think, an example of a company that's done a really great job of this combination of accountability and technology, over the long run. And so, they've scaled that to, many hundreds of millions in revenue internationally and a lot of growth. So I think that's maybe one example of what we want to tend towards, but I think we're still figuring out. We're still early enough where it's about figuring out what that vision is versus necessarily having it solidified right now.
How do you think about future customer acquisition? So when you come out of beta and you're ready to hit the ground running and start to scale, talk to me about how you think about going out there and capturing that business.
Yeah, so I'll break it down probably into the three areas that are kind of distinct from each other for what our current product is now for customer acquisition. So the first one is content marketing. We want to continue to be a thought leader, be a source of new and helpful information for current and prospective members. So that's content marketing. I'll broadly put it into kind of blog posting and writing, events, and other forms, but those are probably the main two within content marketing that we'll focus on. In having a strong brand around this, whether you want to think about it as career wellness or kind of the career navigation space, but having a brand around, we're a trusted source for you in your career. So that's kind of bucket one. Bucket two is member referrals, right? So like I said, think of a cocktail party you've been to. What's one of the first things you talk to someone? What do you do? Right? And that's how careers are typically spoken in those one-on-one or small group settings. And that's what we've seen for referrals as well, right? Because this is something where it's, what do you do? Oh, well, I'm thinking about what I want to do next. Oh, great. This tool I know about Lloyd has helped me as I thought about what I want to do next and moving forward with my goals, right? That's the type of dialogue that we want to have people to have. The reality is we've seen a lot of this, most people aren't going to necessarily talk about, their long-term career goals on social media. Maybe it's that they don't know what those are. Maybe it's that they don't want to talk about it publicly, or frankly, their boss might be watching as well, right? So it's more in that it comes to those offline venues, those conversations and those referrals. And the third one, and this is certainly as we build more of the product vision, is a lot of your career does have touch points with other people, right? Whether it's a resume review from a friend, whether it's networking, whether it's engaging with advisors, and so many other areas. And so there are many areas to kind of build virality into the product, where the product itself is actually kind of having touch points to other people outside, right? So we do something now where all of our members, we help them engage with their board of advisors. So that's the folks around you, advisors that you may touch base with. I mean, some people might not touch base with them for multiple years, but we try to think of it as maybe engaging with them every 3 months. So every 3 months, we help you go through that process, from everything from reminders to what are the actual updates you're giving to your advisors, right? So that you're giving them a way to follow you along your career journey. So when you do have a question for them a year from now, they have been following you along the way. And
can we just do a super quick side tangent?
Sure.
Rattle off real quick. If I was going to send an update to my advisors, what would you recommend I put in there?
So if you're going to update your advisors, I would say talk about what the goals are that you're trying to accomplish now. Some main updates from your work that you've been doing now. Hey, I had this big presentation at work. I knocked it out of the park. I finished this big project, rolled out this product, check it out. So any of those big updates. And then typically ask 1 or 2 questions. You actually want to engage with them, and your advisor are there for a reason. And you should pick advisors that are willing to, answer a question or two from you. So the point is to engage with them and to give them updates along the way. So yeah, I think it's about, hey, as you know, I'm working towards this goal in the long run. Here are some updates that I've had along the way. And oh, by the way, here are a couple questions that would be really helpful if you're able to answer. And so it fosters a better relationship. It also fosters you to actually learn along the way as well.
Perfect. Great. Thanks. Sorry, I know I cut you off, but it's one that's super interesting to me, both as somebody who has advisors as well as somebody who is sometimes an advisor, just to do that little thought process.
Totally. And one of the things we've done that we're exploring is, for some folks, we've built even just like a simple website or, like a landing page that they can then share. So, it's not even just an email, but there's some documentation to it. There's some formality to it. And so that's just one example. We're helping our members, first of all, think of, hey, you should engage with your advisors. It's to then remind them every 3 months to help them so they're not guessing what I should actually include, but actually to provide those suggestions to them. And through that, we can also help with some of the distribution and kind of sharing or facilitate questions, all those kind of things. And so it's just one example where there's virality that we hope to build further and further into the product, because a lot of your career is those individual sharing, right? So again, that cocktail party example, hey, what do you do? Or it's the sharing offline, can you review this resume? Hey, I'm having a conversation with a boss. What do you think? Advisors, etc. And so helping facilitate some of those offline conversations and online conversations, or one-on-one digitally, we think there's virality we can build into the product.
All right, we are probably a little bit over time. If folks want to learn more about Lloyd, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yep, the website is just withloyd.com, so WITHLLOYD.com. Follow me on Twitter, Dan Gusz, and we'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, also feel free to just reach out to me directly, dan@withloyd.com.
Awesome. Dan, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a good one.
Startup Competitors provides monthly handcrafted email updates on your top competitors. Keep up to date on new hires, marketing activities, events, awards, new product launches, pricing changes, funding, and a bunch more. Learn more at startupcompetitors.com.